Welcome to the Bandano Podcast, where we're calling a spade a spade. Great to be here with you guys today. Do you have the guts, WNBA players? Do you have the gonads, the cojones to strike? Or are you going to continue to play patty cake with the WNBA owners?
March 10th. That's the deadline the WNBA set for getting a new collective bargaining agreement done, or the entire 2026 season could be delayed. And as that date arrived, one question dominated every conversation. Do the players actually have the guts to strike? Because if they don't, they're negotiating from a position of weakness. And if they do strike, they risk destroying everything Caitlin Clark just built for them.
To me, Andy Costabile is reporting a meeting between the WNBA and the Players Association, including players, is scheduled for later today. Multiple sources told me. On February 23rd, the league imposed a March 10th target date that, if passed, would subject the season to delays. Both sides have exchanged proposals in recent days, the details of which have not become public. Why haven't they become public? Is movement being made on both sides? The Players Association seems to be acting accordingly, behaving, and they're too scared to leak the details.
Here's what's been happening behind closed doors. According to ESPN's Alexa Philippou, the league imposed that March 10th target date back on February 20th. Both sides have been exchanging proposals in recent days, but suddenly something changed. The details stopped leaking. For months, every time the Players Association made an offer, it got leaked to the media within hours. Players demanding 27% of revenue, then 26%, then 25%. Each leak made them look worse to the public. Now, radio silence. And that's actually significant. When negotiations are going poorly, both sides leak to create public pressure. When things might actually be moving forward, everyone shuts up. The fact that we don't know what's in these latest proposals suggests someone finally realized that negotiating through media leaks was destroying the players' leverage.
Alexa Philippou shares updates on the WNBA CBA negotiations. This was a video from yesterday, about 24 hours before it all comes crashing down.
You've been all over this story. Where do things stand right now between the WNBA and the Players Union?
Yeah, Mina, well, the WNBA sent a counter proposal to the Players Union on Saturday. That was a day after the Players Union sent a counter proposal itself to the league on Friday. So you've had that back and forth, but right now the ball is technically in the players' court. It's been described to me that those proposals contained some movement, indicating a little bit of progress, but I think it's notable that we actually haven't had leaks from either side so far about the contents of that proposal, perhaps indicating that both sides actually see and understand the seriousness of what this deadline tomorrow could bring.
Let's talk about what that public pressure actually looked like. Every time a report came out that the players turned down $1 million average salary offer, fans reacted exactly how you'd expect. Of course, the owners said no to that demand. Every time the players dropped their revenue sharing request by just 1 percentage point from 27 to 26 to 25, the public saw it as theater, not serious negotiation. The Players Association seemed genuinely confused about why they weren't getting public support. But here's the reality. When you're in a league that's lost money for 27 years straight, when the NBA has subsidized your existence to the tune of tens of millions annually, when you just had your first profitable season largely because one player drove unprecedented viewership, demanding NBA-level revenue splits doesn't land well. It doesn't matter if it's fair in some abstract sense. What matters is leverage, and the players were bleeding leverage with every leak. So the decision to keep these latest proposals confidential, that's actually smart strategy, even if it came way too late in the process.
And the date was initially described to me as more of like a target. It does still mean that the league is operating as if they need to get this deal done really sooner rather than later, if not as soon as possible, to ensure the schedule won't be impacted.
I would say this right now. If there is a lockout, if there's no season, if there's a strike, that would do irreparable damage to the WNBA. After fighting so long to be mainstream, Caitlin Clark finally gave it to them. And just like that, it could all go away. After waiting 8 years 10 years with their revenue sharing and finally getting a piece broken off to them, well, all that's going to disappear. So that $45,000 that you got this year from a collective pot of revenue sharing, jersey sales, card sales, so on and so forth,
Now here's where it gets complicated. Caitlin Clark, who's arguably the only reason this negotiation matters right now, went on record with her perspective. At USA Basketball Camp in Miami, she told reporters, "I don't understand why we don't just get in a room and iron it out and shake hands. That's how business is. You look each other in the eye, you shake hands, you respect both sides." It's a reasonable take from someone who's probably never been involved in contentious labor negotiations before. But it reveals something important. Clark still believes both sides respect each other. And that's where her read on the situation might be naive, because a significant portion of WNBA players don't respect the owners, not even a little bit. Think about the public statements from players like Natasha Cloud, Nafisa Collier, Breanna Stewart. The underlying message has consistently been that owners are greedy billionaires hoarding money that rightfully belongs to the players. There's no acknowledgement that these owners have lost money on this investment for nearly 3 decades. No recognition that the NBA's subsidy is what kept the league alive. Just entitlement to revenue the league only started generating last year, largely because of one player's drawing power. You can't look someone in the eye with respect when you fundamentally don't respect what they've done or why they deserve a seat at the table. And that's the real obstacle here.
Caitlin Clark's jersey selling, mainly due to Caitlin Clark's trading cards, mainly due to everything Caitlin Clark related, boosting those numbers. Every piece of the pie that you got broken off of, well, you can kiss that all goodbye. You're going to go another 5 to 10 years of not qualifying for revenue sharing at all. If there's a strike, if there's a lockout, if a season gets missed. And I'm not sure if the players actually understand that, or if they do understand that, I'm not sure if they care. And if they don't care, well, then when you go back to being ignored by the rest of the country, don't complain about it. Don't cry about it. Don't say you need to pay attention to us. Don't say we need to get paid.
Breanna Stewart, who's a vice president of the Players Association, echoed Clark's sentiment about getting everyone in a room. "I think that would be great for all of us to sit in a room until we really get it done," Stewart said. "If that means sitting in there for hours and hours at a time, let's do it." And that meeting did happen. On March 10th, the deadline day, both sides met with players present. But here's the problem with that approach. Too many chiefs, not enough Indians. When you have a room full of players, each with their own priorities, each wanting to be heard, each representing different constituencies within the union, nothing gets done efficiently. The players who make maximum salaries have different interests than players on minimum contracts. Veterans have different concerns than rookies. Stars who can make millions overseas have different leverage than role players who need the WNBA to survive. Getting all those voices aligned in real-time negotiation, that's not how you close a deal. That's how you create a spectacle.
The last 15, 20 years, they complained not getting the recognition they deserve, not getting the exposure they deserve. Well, if there's a strike and a lockout and it goes back to you guys being the redheaded stepchild, Harry Potter and Sorcerer's Stone getting shoved underneath the stairs in a room locked away, don't complain about it. Lexa Filippo put out an article, what we're hearing on the WNBA's CBA negotiations. Another month, another deadline, but now things might be getting real. Nearly a year and a half of negotiations have yet to yield a new collective bargaining agreement, but March 10th is here. Last month, the WNBA told the Players Association and its teams that a new deal should be agreed to by March 10th to keep the 2026 schedule unaffected. There's no indications a deal is imminent, and March 10th might end up being more of a target date than a hard and fast deadline. When the players were given that time frame, the union saw it as a negotiation tactic from the WNBA to pressure players.
So let's game out what happens if this negotiation fails. If the players actually strike, if games get canceled, if the 2026 season is delayed or doesn't happen at all, the damage would be catastrophic, and it would hit the players far harder than the owners. Start with revenue sharing. Last year, for the first time in league history, players qualified for revenue sharing payments. The average player got around $45,000 from a collective pool generated primarily by jersey sales, trading cards, and other merchandise. And who drove those sales? Caitlin Clark. Her jersey sales alone accounted for a massive percentage of that revenue pool. Her trading cards were outselling established stars by ridiculous margins. If there's a strike, if the 2026 season doesn't happen, that momentum dies. Casual fans who just discovered the WNBA because of Clark, they're gone. They'll forget the league exists. The media coverage that finally treated the WNBA like a major sport, that disappears overnight. And most importantly, the revenue sharing that players just started receiving, that goes away for another 5 to 10 years minimum. You can't strike your way to prosperity when you don't have leverage, and the players don't have leverage here, no matter how much they want to believe they do. Here's what makes this situation so frustrating to watch. The WNBA just had its best year ever. Attendance was up across the board. Television ratings shattered records, with multiple games exceeding 3 million viewers. Merchandise sales exploded. Corporate sponsorships flooded in. The league finally, after 27 years of existence, turned a profit. And the players deserve credit for that success. They've worked for decades in obscurity, playing in front of small crowds, getting minimal media coverage, making salaries that required them to play overseas year-round just to make a decent living. They've earned the right to benefit from this growth. But here's the part that seems to escape many players in this negotiation. This growth is fragile. The WNBA didn't gradually build to this point through steady, sustainable expansion. It exploded in 1 year because one generational talent entered the league and brought millions of fans with her. That's not a stable foundation, that's lightning in a bottle. If you strike, you're betting that those fans will still be there when you come back. You're betting that corporate sponsors will wait around. You're betting that television networks will still want to pay premium rates for a league that just canceled a season. And historically, that's a terrible bet. Look at what happened to the NHL after their lockout in 2004-2005. They canceled an entire season, and it took them a decade to recover the momentum they'd lost. The NHL had a much more established fan base than the WNBA does right now. They had generational stars like Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin entering the league right after the lockout, and it still nearly destroyed them. The WNBA doesn't have that kind of cushion. This league has been on life support, subsidized by the NBA for its entire existence. One profitable year doesn't erase 27 years of losses. It doesn't create a war chest that can survive a work stoppage. It creates an opportunity, and opportunities can disappear as quickly as they arrive. Think about the players who've been complaining for years about lack of media coverage, lack of respect, lack of recognition. Remember when players were furious that ESPN wasn't showing enough WNBA highlights? Remember when they demanded that sports media treat them like the NBA? Remember when they insisted that fans needed to pay attention? Well, fans are paying attention now. Media is covering the league now. Sponsors are investing now. And the response is to potentially strike and make all of that go away? That's not strategy. That's self-destruction. And here's the thing about Caitlin Clark's role in all of this. She didn't ask to be the savior of the WNBA. She just showed up and played basketball, but her presence changed everything. Her games were the ones that drew 3 million viewers. Her jersey was the one everyone wanted. Her highlights were the ones going viral on social media. She's the reason casual sports fans suddenly cared about the WNBA. Now imagine she sits out a year because of a strike. What happens to that fan base? Do they wait patiently for the WNBA to return? Or do they move on to the next thing? Because sports fans have short attention spans, and there's always another story, another athlete, another league competing for their time. The players seem to believe they have leverage because the league just had a successful year, but that's backwards. They have vulnerability because that success is so new and so dependent on factors outside their control. The smart play here is to lock in gains, secure meaningful improvements to salaries and working conditions, and build on this momentum for the next negotiation cycle. Instead, we're watching a game of chicken where one side is driving a tank and the other side is on a bicycle. The owners can survive a canceled season. They've been losing money on this investment for decades. One more year of losses doesn't fundamentally change their position, but the players? They're risking everything they just gained. So do the players have the guts to strike? Maybe, but the better question is, do they have the wisdom not to? Because sometimes courage means knowing when not to fight, especially when you're holding a weak hand at a table where the other side can afford to walk away. The March 10th deadline has come and gone, negotiations are continuing, and every day that passes without a deal is another day of uncertainty. Another day where sponsors get nervous, another day where fans start to wonder if they should invest their attention elsewhere. The players wanted respect. They wanted to be taken seriously. They wanted to be treated like professional athletes in a major league. Well, here's what that actually means. It means understanding leverage, reading the room, and knowing when you've got a good deal on the table, even if it's not everything you wanted. It means recognizing that perfect is the enemy of good and that holding out for perfect can leave you with nothing. The WNBA is at a crossroads. One path leads to continued growth, building on last year's success, securing better pay and conditions for players while maintaining the momentum that finally made this league relevant. The other path leads to a strike, a canceled season, and a very real possibility that all of this progress evaporates. Which path will the players choose? We're about to find out, and whatever happens next will define this league for the next decade. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do the players have the leverage to strike? Should they take whatever deal is on the table? And what happens to the WNBA if this season doesn't happen? Hit that subscribe button because this story is far from over.